Okay, Brother Chad, you come. We online now? Okay, Brother Chad's going to come and continue his study in Proverbs. We enjoyed your teaching and we're blessed by it, and I know some others have been too that are not physically here. So carry on, brother.
As we begin, I just want to take a moment and thank Pastor. He does a great job of taking the email that I send to him and printing out your notes for you. I'm trying to work to get my laptop fixed so that I can bring that and print that off myself instead of making him do the legwork of getting the notes into your hand. But thank you, Pastor, for working on putting those together. I definitely appreciate it. The last couple weeks we've been dealing with family and relationships. And last week in particular, we dealt with husbands and wives, the principles that Proverbs gave us about that. And I thought it would be appropriate to transition from that into talking about principles about parents and then about children. And we'll see how much we get through this morning. But we're talking about relationships and dealing with parents. So we're going to jump right in here talking about the principles. And there's a lot that Proverbs has to say about parents, but even more that he has to say about children. As the entire book is written as a parent, putting these things down for his children, as Solomon had a lot of children. And so he has a lot to say about this relationship in particular, parents and children. So we'll jump right in. The first verse that we're going to jump to is Proverbs 14:26. And it's a wonderful place to start as we talk about parents. It says, "In the fear of the Lord is strong confidence, and his children shall have a place of refuge." One of the most important principles for us to understand in regard to our children is that your relationship with God impacts them. Basically, it is a detriment to your children if you do not fear God. The status of your spiritual health will have an impact on them. In the fear of the Lord is strong confidence, and his children shall have a place of refuge. The children of a person who fears the Lord, they will have a place of refuge. So your relationship with God impacts your children. A deep impact on your children. And obviously we know someone who is saved has a tremendous impact on their children as well. And that's born further out of that. But your relationship with the Lord has a tremendous impact on your children. Now, this is a verse that we looked at last week, so we're not going to touch on it too much other than to just read it and probably pass right through it. Proverbs 17 and verse 6. And perhaps you'll remember this from the last couple of weeks. Children's children are the crown of old men, and the glory of children are their fathers. Children want to be proud of their fathers. The principle, one of the things that we can draw out is that we should not be fathers that cause our children to be ashamed. We are not parents because we want our kids' approval. We don't do what we do to gain their approval, but our actions should not cause our children to be ashamed of us. And that's something to remember as parents. But we mentioned that before. Let's go on. A couple chapters later to Proverbs 19 and verse 13. It says, "A foolish son is the calamity of his father, and the contentions of a wife are a continual dropping." A fool is someone, and I've mentioned this before, a fool is someone who doesn't have the good sense to know that they should listen to God. They don't care about God. And it is a strong word. It's most often used of the unsaved. They just don't see a need for God. They're called foolish. The idea that Proverbs draws home here and in a lot of other places, it's that if you don't think it's important to teach your children about God, if you don't feel like God is important in your life and in the lives of your children, you will pay a price for that. There is an effect, a cause and effect. If you are a fool, your children pay the price. If you don't teach your children, if they don't understand that God is important, that there is value in listening to him, if we don't convey that to our children, there is a price for that. A foolish son, one who hates God, is a calamity. That's a very strong word. A calamity, just a massive, horrendous event, a calamity. Things falling apart when we don't take the time to convey to our children the fear of the Lord. Then 20 and verse 7. Moving down through here, Proverbs 20 and verse 7, it says, "The just man walketh in his integrity, and his children are blessed after him." Not only does your relationship with God have an effect on your children, but your character has an effect on your children. And the benefit that you see, it's twofold there. First of all, they see your good example. His children are blessed after him. He walks in his integrity. His children are blessed after him. And there's two parts of that. They see his good example, and they have a tremendous benefit from his good name. When you have parents that have a tremendous reputation, that goes in front of you even as children, even as a child. So your character has an effect on your children. They see your good example to understand how to live, and they can follow that example, and then they also benefit from your good name when they're out and about in society. If you have a tremendously good work ethic, that'll speak tremendous things towards somebody wanting to hire your children. So there's benefits to having character. Tied in with this, there's also a great deal that Proverbs has to say about discipline. So we're going to tackle this one next. Proverbs 13, verse 24. Discipline in our day and age is a potential hot topic. But whatever it is that you choose and that you do, you be sure that it is biblically based, and that is the reason why you're doing it. And that goes for all the choices that we make in life. Whatever it is that you choose to do, be sure that you are doing it because you are basing it on what God has said. Not simply because society wants you to do it one way, or because you have feelings, or because you are reacting against your past. Be sure that the decisions that you are making and how you are living, specifically your discipline, be sure it is biblically God-honoring and biblically based. 13:24 says, "He that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes," or betimes, however you say that word. We don't use it anymore, and I don't know how to say it. Withholding discipline is not a sign of love. It is equal to hatred. Now, we throw around hatred a lot, the word hate, and we use it very flippantly, but the Bible doesn't. To hate something, it's a very strong term. And so it draws out the point that when you withhold discipline, when you know that there is something that needs to be corrected and you choose Nah, just let it pass. That is not you showing love. That's not a sign of love. It's equal to hatred. And if you love your children, it says you will chasten him betimes. You'll discipline them promptly. Deal with an issue as it happens. If you love your children, you will discipline them promptly. Proverbs 19 and verse 18 as we continue through here. Chasten thy son while there is hope. Let not thy soul spare for his crying. Discipline starts when a child is young, when they're teachable. If you wait to discipline a child until he's a teenager, till they are a teenager, that's past the point when you have effect, when it has any value. Chasten thy son while there is hope. You discipline your children when they're young. You teach them when they're young. It starts when they're young. And no chastening, Scripture draws it out, no chastening is good in the moment. You don't enjoy it in the moment. So there will be tears when you discipline. They're not going to enjoy that process, but it is a necessary process, and it is one that needs to start while they are young and teachable. This next verse is, as we think about discipline, and especially as parents, perhaps the most important one. Proverbs 23, verses 13 and 14, it says, Withhold not correction from the child, for if thou beatest him with the rod, he shall not die. Thou shalt beat him with the rod, and shalt deliver his soul from hell. Discipline is never a way to display your anger for a mistake or for wrongdoing. That is not its purpose. The motivation for discipline, when you are thinking about, okay, what am I going to do as a parent? How am I going to approach this? How do I even begin to make these decisions? It begins with understanding the motivation of what we are accomplishing as parents. Correction is for the purpose of saving a child from premature death, helping them to understand who God is and the responsibility that they have to Him so that they can trust in Him as their Savior. That is our entire purpose. It's to save a soul from hell. That is the motivation and that is the purpose of discipline. Everything revolves around that. If it is done to accomplish other goals, it will not be done in a God-honoring way. Discipline requires self-control because it is done for a specific purpose. And if your motivation is not right, your discipline will be wrong. When you come to discipline a child, there should never be a time when you are not in control of yourself and when you do not understand what it is exactly that you are doing. Discipline should be purposeful, measured to accomplish the goal that God intends for it. Not for you to get your anger out or express yourself or help your child to understand that you don't like what they've done or that it's not. There is a purpose in discipline. It should not be done with anger. must be done with self-control and purpose, whatever form it takes. Proverbs 29, and verse 15. And again, if you have questions or comments, just throw up your hand. I'm willing to entertain all. And we have a lot of folks in here that have a tremendous amount of parenting experience, much more than myself. So if you have input, it is more than welcome. Proverbs 29 and verse 15. Make my way down there. 29 and verse 15 says, "The rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself bringeth his mother to shame." There are many ways to discipline, but a child who is not disciplined at all, who is left on their own, will bring shame. Bringeth his mother to shame. It's almost like he reaches back, takes her hand, and says, "Come on with me. Let's go be ashamed together." When discipline does not take place. As I said, there's many ways to discipline, but a child who's not disciplined at all, who is not taught to understand this is right, this is wrong, there are repercussions for wrong, so that you can convey to them that there are repercussions for sin in the same way, so that we understand that we need God, that we've done wrong if that is not conveyed. They're just left on their own. It's like that child reaches back, takes the parent's hand, and says, "Come with me, let's go get ashamed together." Following on with that, 2 verses down, it says, "Correct thy son," in verse 17, "and he shall give thee rest. Yea, he shall give delight unto thy soul." Because discipline is an investment in your own future and in the future of your children. It not only has invaluable, necessary, and irreplaceable value in the lives of your children, but it also is an investment in your own future. When we discipline a child, when they can begin to learn these are sinful things and we should not do them because sin has consequences. When we teach them those things so that they can rely on God and they understand the grace of God and what He's done for us, when we teach our children, it's an investment in your future. As it says, "Correct thy son, he shall give thee rest. He shall give delight unto thy soul." There's a joy that comes when a child understands who God is and learns to fear Him. Children. As I made mention, the whole book is geared towards children. Solomon points to that as he talks about my son, and addresses his son throughout this process, addresses his children. Yes.
You've gone to the next section, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Could we go off the air and finish the on-the-air program? I'll have some questions for Chad for off the air. If we could go ahead and finish the Sunday school lesson, go ahead and turn it off, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Before we leave,
Yes.